Hello, everyone. It's 11 o'clock. Welcome to our first Women in Sectional Title webinar for the year. It's really incredible to kick off the year celebrating the remarkable women that are shaping our industry. I feel really, really privileged and honored to be talking to colleagues of mine today. I think this is your space. This is definitely, it's your space. It's going to be a year full of gaining knowledge, of interesting webinars going forward. Women are on the front line in the sectional title field, and they're definitely driving innovation, transformation, and changes which are going to benefit all of us. So it's an exciting place to be. And certainly I know that this webinar today is going to be engaging, inspiring, and memorable. Before we delve into charting the path with all our legal eagles, I'd like to discuss a couple of things relating to our amazing sponsors and to just give you an idea of what they're up to at the moment. So let's start with We Connect You. To let you know, We Connect You are holding their Engage events. The online event is on the 13th of February, which is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Then they have 6 in-person events. I'll give you the dates. Johannesburg is the 19th of February, Pretoria the 21st of February, Gqeberha is the 4th of March, Durban the 6th of March, Cape Town the 14th of March, and Bloemfontein is the 18th of March. I think those are really worthwhile going to. They're always incredibly interesting. And I certainly look forward to participating in them. Then we have Sectional Title Solutions. So there was an article written recently by Fausto Di Palma of Sectional Title Solutions that talked about our industry lobbying the banks to become more proactively involved with the collection of arrear levies. And I think that's definitely something that women in sectional title would like to become involved in and to be at the forefront with any other key stakeholders. So if there's anyone from Sectional Title Solutions that is listening today, please do get hold of us. Let's start pushing the banks to actually put their money where their mouth is instead of just granting bonds and not looking after the interests of our communities. Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. Great. Also, PKF Octagon. PKF Octagon are on a serious drive to look at becoming more involved in auditing in our estates, our large estates. And I really believe very much in surrounding yourself with specialists in anything in life. If you go to a doctor, you go to a proper specialist. If you go to a lawyer, you go to a specialist. And the same applies with the auditing game. So I think that's good. And speaking about specialists, let's get right into things. We're keeping it lighthearted, but I think it'll be of great interest to you to get to know my colleagues, who I'm very proud of, and I think we always inspire each other. We lift each other up as women. So very big welcome to Zelinda van der Merwe. Hi, Zelinda from TVDM.
Hi there, Marina.
Lovely to see you. Nicole Nell, also from TVDM. Very familiar faces. Thank you. And Lishay Hodson, who's an advocate of the High Court.
Hi, Marina. Thank you for having me.
It's a great pleasure. Lovely to see you, ladies. All right, so we're going to dive in and I'll jump around and we'll just play it by ear. How does that sound? Hey, Zelinda, let's start with you. I wanted to ask you what inspired you to follow a career in law and also then to go on to go into the sectional title space.
So thanks, Marina. I'm sure that it's something that everyone that has listened to me before has heard, but I always wanted to study law, strangely enough, and property laws very soon became an interest of mine. I was a very young child and my dad was going through a bit of a custody issue with his sons from a previous marriage, and it was the first time that I saw my dad cry. And I said to my mom, you know, what's going on? And she explained it to me, and I asked who the people were, and she explained who they were. And I said, well, I want to be a lawyer so that I can make sure that this doesn't happen to other, dads one day. And it turns out that family law was not for me. You have to be a very, very, very strong person to deal with family law. But I always had an interest in company law and in property law. And I lived in community schemes all my life. I lived in almost 20 different community schemes. And I was the naughty kid that used to ride on the bike when no bikes were allowed and all those fun things. So sectional title very soon became part of my bloodline. And you identified that when I was a managing agent. And, you said, come do your articles with BBM. So it was a really great experience to be afforded so many opportunities. And that's really what got me started and what really started the love for community schemes.
Lovely. Yeah. And I remember you as a young candidate attorney aspiring, and I'm very proud of where you've got to, Zelinda. Really, I must just tell you that.
Thank you so much.
Rishay, tell us a little bit about your interesting legal journey. You took a few different twists and turns.
So I think, as most people know, I landed up in sectional title by default. Always loved law, was far too rebellious and lazy to study it at school. And my husband just kept saying, do your LLB, do your LLB. And I said, what for? I'm running a company with you. Why would I want to downgrade to being somebody's skivvy, essentially, and doing articles? And eventually I thought, let me just do it, because I think people, it's the wrong thing, but people respect you more when you have those 3 letters behind your name. So my thing of doing law was just to get those 3 letters so that I could give an opinion to somebody in sectional title, and they say, we want a legal opinion, and I can say, but this is a legal opinion. So I never had any desires to be a practicing attorney or go into advocacy. I would have loved to have done it, but that ship had really sailed. I was too old and I was stuck in sectional title. But yeah, here I am, through a nasty twist of fate, unfortunately, and fortunately, I landed up following my dream and my passion, and I'm finally where I should always have been, and that's in advocacy.
That's wonderful, and much respect. Much respect. We'll talk a little bit later about those twists and turns as well. And Nicole, what was your first impression of sectional title law? Was it a very steep learning curve? Was it love at first sight, or?
So I would say yes to both of those questions. I think that, so obviously my first exposure to sectional title was when I started working at TVDM a little over 4 years ago. And I remember my first day, I was so confused as to what was going on, because obviously I studied law and I had the legal backing and everything. But I found coming into sectional title, when you don't know anything about it, it can be so overwhelming with all of the unique terms and jargon and things like that. And I just remember coming from a company law background, I just kept on trying to relate everything to company law in a way to try and make me understand. But the more that I think, because I also am on my 7th community scheme in my life at the moment, so I currently live in my 7th one, also lived in them throughout my life. I also found that the more I learned about sectional title, I could obviously relate it so easily to my life, because obviously I live in a community scheme, I've lived in all different types, and I've had exposure to it. So I think that relatable experience made me want to just keep on learning more and more, oh, why are things like that? Why did we decide to repaint our building this color? It's horrible. Why did we go that way? So yeah, it was definitely a steep learning curve, but luckily I am a self-proclaimed nerd and love to learn. So, and I'm still learning every day. And I think that's one of the nice things about sectional title and community schemes in general, is every single day you hear or learn of something new, which is amazing.
That's wonderful. Excellent. I lived in one community scheme my whole life, and I can tell you very honestly, I definitely will not be living in any other community scheme, would you believe? I think you might believe it after 26 years of a few dramas. Okay, so let's go back to you, Zelinda. If you could describe your career in sectional title law with a movie title, what would it be and why?
Oh man, I really struggled with this. I asked Matt to help me, and he said, Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. I'm like, no, you can't just keep on resorting to that the whole time. And I said to him, quite interesting is that you never know what you're going to get until you take a bite of one of those chocolates. And I also, you know, think about my experience in community schemes as being one that looks relatively straightforward and simple from the outset, but as you start engaging with each individual, it becomes a lot more tricky, because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with their homes, you're dealing with their investments, you're dealing with their emotions. So I think it's probably a good title. I'm not creative enough, unfortunately, to come up with my own. So I'm just going to steal that one. And the catch line being life is like a box of chocolates. But yeah, I think I'll stop there. It's really one that I thought about quite a bit, but unfortunately the creative juices weren't flowing flowing that well.
That's okay. That's okay. I fully understand. I think as lawyers, we are quite linear, you know,
Yeah.
and we stick to one area, and then you've got to be a bit agile to jump over. So it is quite tough. Alicia, tell us, what's one change you'd like to see in the sectional title industry that you believe is going to make a lasting impact?
So Marina, I think the change I would like is already there, but not quite up to scratch. And that's digitizing everything. Almost, I mean, it is there, but it's not there. And if we could get it to something like Court Online, you know, it would be fantastic, where all the stakeholders can just access everything from a desktop, free of charge, what you need, how you need it. I mean, we have to, my experience in sectional title is you have to jump through hoops, and you have, and the waiting time to get rules, to get plans, to get minutes, and you know, even the companies that are using We Connect You and BCM Track, and things are digitized, somebody's got to put it there and they forget. So if it's legislated and it's a central database like CSOS has, but that's functioning properly. So that would be my one thing, is to get that up and running properly.
Definitely. I think We Connect You are certainly on their way to that. You know, having heard what their sort of vision is, but just for the listeners who are not sure what Court Online is, what would you let them know?
So I think you're probably better experienced than us here in Cape Town. We've only just gone on to Court Online in December, and yeah, I mean, I haven't had much experience with it, but it's possibly, it is a game changer. It is literally, instead of running around with wads of paper and serving documents on people, everything is uploaded onto a central database. The judge has access to it, all your attorneys, advocates, whoever needs, the registrar, and everything's there in front of you, and you can access everything at the push of a button.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a game changer, and you know, it's so much schlepping around and hassle, and they're quite quick actually. I'm surprised here in Joburg, when our attorneys tell me, oh, they've uploaded it and they're waiting for court dates and whatever, and it's quite quick. I'm really chuffed about that. So let's hope that continues. Nicole, what trends or changes do you foresee shaping sectional title landscape in the next couple of years?
So I had to think about this one for a bit, and some things that are maybe from a personal point of view. I know that this is a very big factor and focus for We Connect You, and that is obviously professionalizing the role of the managing agent. And, you know, just I know there's been chat about, you know, formalizing a qualification for managing agents and working on just cementing that professional aspect that this role is actually serving. And I really believe that, you know, once that happens, it would just add so much more. Not that it's not there at the moment, it should be, but we all know how some trustees can be in bodies corporate. It would just add legitimacy and credibility to the profession as a whole, help them operate better within, you know, set regulations and guidelines, those types of things. And then just another one that I think is on the rise at the moment and is only going to take off more is the rise of the executive managing agents, just taking over the role of trustee committees, and not for the reason that you would think that our trustees are lazy and bodies corporate are lazy and those types of things. But a trend that I've seen happening is that more and more diverse types of people are buying into community schemes, and older generations and people who have lived there for a long time have left. So there's a change of blood, change in trustee committee, the old and the new do not get along. There's constant clashes, conflict. I'm seeing it more and more often. And 19 out of 20 times my recommendation to those schemes are, have you guys considered getting an executive managing agent? Because I'm finding it so hard to get decisions made in those schemes. And again, with the professionalizing of the managing agent role, and then of course the uptake in EMAs, I think that that's something that's really going to change the sphere of community schemes moving forward.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, my thoughts exactly. Linda, if you could change anything in the legislation, regulation or management rule or whatever, what would it be?
Sure, I'm going to say quite a big one, and I don't know how it's going to be received, but I would probably do away with the community schemes ombuds service, alternatively limit their powers.
Oh, wham bam.
I did think about it quite a lot, and I thought 2025 is going to be the year that I don't keep quiet or I don't mince my words about things. And I personally have not been satisfied with my engagements with them or the results. And I know that it's been a mixed bag, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes you deal with someone good, sometimes you deal with somebody bad. But I do think that they're overstepping, and if not to get rid of them, it would be, or to get rid of the institution of the community schemes ombuds service, it would be to regulate it more strictly, because I think that the powers are a little bit open for interpretation. And something that we've started doing, and I know that WIST, motivated as well, is internal dispute resolution, and almost to make that step compulsory. So they do have the requirement of the exhaustion of internal remedies, but that isn't defined anywhere, and it's really treated on a case-by-case basis. It should be compulsory to have proper formal internal dispute resolution before you go the route of the community scheme ombuds service. I do think that it's going to limit the amount of disputes at the CSOS, and it's going to aid the CSOS step. We've even taken it as far as saying, before we will assist any client in making an application to the CSOS, they have to prove that they have undertaken internal dispute resolution. Otherwise, we're not going to take on the instruction, which could blow up in our faces terribly, so be it. But I think we feel, well, I know that we feel strongly enough about it. I mean, Nicole's even gone ahead with her mediation training, and will go further with her arbitration training as well. But yeah, that's a big one. And then a light-hearted one, I wouldn't mind changing the requirements of a unanimous resolution. I do think that it's very difficult practically to get a unanimous resolution. So I would rather propose that everybody at a meeting, as opposed to a higher quorum requirement at a meeting, be able to pass a unanimous resolution. If you do feel strongly enough about a decision that requires a unanimous resolution, you're going to make a plan to attend or submit a proxy or take an on vote. So I would like to change that. But yeah, that's a whopper for today.
So moving right along. No, I appreciate that. You know what? We've got to speak truth to power at the end of the day. That's one thing we've learned. Okay, so let's go on to Alicia. What is your go-to way of unwinding after a particularly intense day in court?
So I've had the privilege of having an amazing mentor during my pupillage, and I think we've often practiced debriefing. So we will sit and discuss over a glass of wine whatever's happened. But if that's not an option, or not a feel like, I enjoy being home, my dogs, my kids, and if it's a Friday, off to away for the weekend water skiing. I mean, those are just my go-tos. Very, very homely, practical kind of thing.
Yeah, that's lovely. And I've enjoyed watching that, by the way. All the lovely photos that you post and that kind of thing. It kind of makes you feel a bit closer to a person, that you get to know them better. Also, Lisha, I wanted to ask you, managing a property and managing a courtroom seem like two very different things. So which do you think is easier, or which one is more challenging?
Sectional title's more challenging, without a doubt. I mean, I can't even lie to you. I'd like to say advocacy or managing a courtroom, but no, honestly, Marina, sectional title is just, there's very little respect in the industry. Whereas when you're in a courtroom, there's decorum, there's respect for your colleagues. You fight it out with your colleagues, but outside those courtroom doors, and sectional title is similar in this respect. many colleagues are civil to each other. They are friendly outside of the dispute or away from their clients. But I definitely think there's more respect in law, and there's more decorum, and there just isn't that in the sectional title industry.
Yeah, it's difficult, and I think that's, you know, what we need to kind of prioritize and get that message across, that you've got to lift up, you know, people have got to step up to the plate in this industry. And Nicole, Linda mentioned mediation, and I know that you have a particular interest in that. Will you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. So I also knew that I didn't know that I wanted to study law when I was younger. I actually wanted to be a doctor, but I'm obviously very bad at maths because I'm a lawyer. So that didn't work out. And then when I was growing up, all of my adults around me would always tell me, oh, you're going to be a lawyer when you grow up, because I don't know, maybe I like to argue or something like that. So then I went and I studied law, and like within the first few days, I was like, this is really not for me. The idea of like going to court as an attorney and being in a courtroom fighting with people, I just knew, not that I didn't like it, but I just knew that I didn't have the same passion as my peers. So then I started telling people, oh, I want to be a consultant, but I didn't think it really existed. And I just kind of knew that I always wanted to help people solve their problems, but I didn't want to fight their problems for them. And I really found, like with mediation, a really sweet niche spot of being able to do that, because you don't necessarily sit there and solve someone's problem for them, but you just help them and give them the tools that they need, maybe some information that they weren't aware of, just to kind of help both parties sit down, see each other's side calmly, and come to some kind of agreement. And like Zelinda mentioned, with the process, we found that, you know, initially you would say, oh, there's 12 items in dispute, you know, but now after you've gone through like a calm mediation, perhaps you've narrowed that down to only 4. Going to CSOS on 12 issues versus going to CSOS on only 4 issues is obviously going to make a massive difference in your timing delays and things like that. So yeah, it's really definitely changed my approach to how I deal with clients in disputes. And generally, Zelinda knows that I'm not the best person for an aggressive client or someone who wants to fight or who wants to go very hardcore, for lack of a better word. I'm definitely let's try and sit around the table. Let's see if we can speak. Let's talk this out. And it's really changed how I've dealt with a lot of situations, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of us feel that way at the moment. And Belinda, if you can tell me one lesson that you've learned through your career in the sectional title and community schemes sort of landscape, what would it be?
That there's nothing wrong with specialization. I remember when I was studying and people would ask, you know, what direction you want to go in. I was always like property, sectional title, property. And they said to me, oh, you know, you're too young to know what you want to do. Rather, you know, become a general litigant or become a general practitioner, you know, go work for a firm that offers all sorts of different services. You might find that you actually enjoy doing criminal law or something along those lines. And like I mentioned earlier, I was always very fortunate to have been able to be afforded opportunities to work in my line of passion. And it made me realize that there's absolutely nothing wrong with knowing from an early age that you want to specialize and run with that. You mentioned it right at the beginning about going to specialists for different things. You know, if you've identified something that you love, that you're passionate about, that you're good at, or you can become good at, you know, specialize in that and run with it. You don't have to try everything before you know or confirm what you want to do. So that's my little piece of advice, is that, you know, what I've learned is that you can specialize, you can love and enjoy and have passion for what you do. Even if it does revolve around people's problems, there's always a silver lining to it. So to stick to what you enjoy doing.
Absolutely. And also there's nothing better than going up against another lawyer who knows nothing about sectional title, because you're much quicker off the mark. Don't you agree? Like you know, they've got to go look it up and they've got to see, and then they're a little bit unsteady on their feet. So I agree with that. I enjoy specializing as well, 100%.
When you start citing the provisions of the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act and they have to pull their little handbook out to start looking at it.
Yeah, 100%. Alicia, what's the strangest or funniest request that you've ever received when you were in the managing agency space?
So besides the request to keep a pot-bellied pig within a unit, many years back, Anthony and I were sitting at home in the days of checks where we were signing city council checks to go and pay all those numerous city council accounts. And we lived in the southern suburbs, which for those of you in Joburg, it was 20 kilometers away from our office and from where the bulk of our schemes were. Got a phone call from an owner in a Greenpoint building to say that the restaurant beneath them was on fire. Could we please phone the fire department? So that was that I've never forgotten that, because it was just so bizarre that the fire department is down the road from you. We're in the southern suburbs with no landline telephone directory and the building's on fire.
Well, that again concretizes the view that managing agent is everything to everyone. I mean, from psychologists to dragons, that's bottom line.
Absolutely.
You speak about your husband, Anthony, and your personal story includes the loss of your husband, Risha, and I know that's been very difficult for you. How have you managed to cope, to study, and your kids are there, and you've had this loss? What do you think pulled you through this whole thing?
So, Marina, yeah, it's all very much, that particular year is very much a blur. People say, I don't know how you got through it, because I was actually doing 2 qualifications at the same time. I was doing a postgrad diploma in law, specializing in dispute resolution through UCT, and I was doing my LLB. And this was right at the beginning of the year. It was May. I had a child who just started at Stellenbosch, another one finishing his BCom, and another child in high school. So people say, how did you do it? Well, actually, I don't know. There wasn't a choice. But what I can say is when my children said to me, they want a break and they want to take 3 months off, I said, absolutely not. You will get back to that, which meant I had to do the same. I mean, I couldn't take a break, but I was left to run a company on my own. And I couldn't have done it without the help of a few core stakeholders. One of them was Zelinda. Zelinda just rose to the occasion. In the first week, she put together a WhatsApp group, and she got a couple of people, Mike Addison, it was Zelinda, Gary Engelbrecht. They just formed this group, and they supported me through the first year. And my Anthony's PA, Melisha Appels. I mean, without her, I just couldn't have run that company. So yeah, I managed to get through the studies. I managed to rely on people in the industry. And I think you forget how close this industry really is. You know, we tend to growl at each other and snarl at each other, but there's enough work to go around. And there are people who actually want to see people succeed. So, you know, Zelinda was not a managing agent, but she pulled in people, and for that, I mean, as I say, it's a blur, but I know I could not have got through it without those people. And I had to keep the company going, Marina, and I'm not a good manager of people. So I had to make a decision. Do I staff it up and run it, or do I keep it going until I can sell it? And yeah, I'm finally where I want to be. As I said, through an unfortunate twist of events, I would never have left Anthony in that company on his own. I would never have abandoned him. But unfortunately, his passing gave me the out I needed to pursue my passion. And as I say, this was never where I was planning to go in life. It was a dream, and I'm now living my dream. And yeah, I have many people to thank for that particular boost into it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's perseverance and resilience, and we can all learn so much from that. Wonderful, really, really wonderful. Nicole, I wanted to ask you, if your legal career was turned into a book, what would the title be?
Just getting started.
I like that.
Yeah.
Very nice. And while we're on you, Nicole, have you ever, what obstacles have you faced as a woman? Have you ever tried, you know, are there any men who are always trying to out-lawyer you? How do you deal with it?
Yes, definitely. I also think I've got a bit of a double whammy in the sense that, you know, if I go to chair a meeting or something, I'm generally quite younger than a lot of the owners and the people there and things like that. And I know that, you know, in the past, like people have like made comments about my age and like my knowledge and things like that. But to be really honest with you, it really doesn't affect me that much, I don't think. I think maybe when I started out, it affected me more because I think women generally, and I've spoken to other like my friends and my colleagues my age, and I'm sure most ladies on the call can relate to that kind of feeling of imposter syndrome. You know, when you come into your career and you know you are good at what you do, and but you don't fully believe it yourself yet. So you just have this imposter syndrome, and people say these things and then it affects you. But I think as I've been, you know, as I've stayed in the industry and, you know, just learned more and experienced more, now I don't feel bad for the people that make those comments, but it doesn't affect me because I also know that it's completely misplaced. You don't know me at all. And I can understand that you're in a frustrating situation. It's your home, it's your property. I know people get crazy in sectional titles, so I just try not to take it personally. And of course, that's easier said than done, but it really is one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten is, you know, it's just business, like it's nothing personal. And most of the time people who are upset with you or talk down on you, a lot of the times they've come back to us on other matters and actually sought our advice, so it couldn't have been so bad in the first place.
There you go. Absolutely. And you just keep on with that.
Exactly.
You keep on with it. Sometimes you have to develop a very, very thick skin in this industry. But yeah, you keep going. That's great. And Zelinda, if you could meet any woman in history and have a cup of coffee with her, who would it be and what would you ask her?
So again, it was a difficult one to prepare for. I try to look at the people that are involved in my life and have been involved in my life to get me to where I am, and that continues to work with me. And as cheesy as it sounds, but it's true, I'd love to have a coffee with you to catch up, because you were, you know, one of the women and are still one of the women that is instrumental in my life. You know, very often I get asked, you know, in the different places that you've worked, like, what have you learned, and you know, what inspired you to do this and that and whatever. You know, from you and BBM, I learned the power of making your own brand within the firm and marketing and talking to people and being human with people. And I feel before then I was very black and white and very formal, but learning how to see the human side of what we do, I learned from you. So a coffee catch up with you would be great. There isn't anybody per se in history that I would like to have a chat with, but rather the people that are close to me and have helped me grow to where I am now.
Oh, thank you, Zelinda. That's on. It's a date. It's a date.
Cool.
Really. Thank you for that. Thank you.
We connect you event.
Alicia, as an advocate. Yeah, 100%. As an advocate, you object a lot in court. You stand up, you object, and now, if you had to go back into your sectional title space, what is your personal bugbear, or what do you object to the most in sectional title legislation?
You know, I just think that when you take that Sectional Title Schemes Management Act, it is great in theory, but practically it's so that's my biggest bugbear, is that we've got a wonderful book on theory, but it's not always practical to implement. And you know, people come to you and say, can you give me an opinion? Say, sure. You take that act and you give an opinion. They go to Zelinda and they say, can you give me an opinion? The opposite person. She gives an opinion contrary to me, contrary to what I've given. And they both actually write, you would, Zelinda. But they're both right. We're pulling from the same thing. And you know, sometimes it's just not practical because you're dealing with humans and there are so many gray areas. And then somebody says, but that's the legislation. It's not quite applicable here. How are we going to apply this? And I think So Linda, you and I have come up with this many times. We've tried to figure out how to apply the black and white. So that's my bugbear, is simply making the act more practical, because I think the people that were instrumental in developing this act have never actually worked at the coalface. They were great academics, but they've never lived in sectional title. They've never been managing agents. And I think if you had more managing agents, or if they took seriously the managing agents' opinions when finalizing legislation, I think you'd have a very, very different and more implementable, practical act.
Very much. Yeah, very much. Agreed. And I can't tell you how many times I phone managing agents for advice on certain things that, I'm not quite sure of on the at the coalface on the ground. So definitely more input from managing agents is necessary. Thank you for that. Nicole, if you could give some advice to any young woman coming into this industry, what would it be? Or what is the best advice you've received as well? And what advice would you give?
So I think a very good piece of advice that I'm still learning every day is just be patient with yourself. I think young women and women generally, we want to work hard and we want people to be proud of us and we want to be successful. But I think a lesson that I've had to learn over time is that things don't happen overnight. And as long as you're putting in the work that you need, and you at the end of the day can say, I'm happy with myself, I'm happy with the amount of effort I put into the day. That's really all that you can do. Like all you can do is your best every day, and no one is asking you to do more than that. So I would say just be patient with yourself, and also to have those boundaries in place from the start of, I want to succeed in my career, but it's also not going to become my life, kind of thing. You need to have a life outside of work still.
Yeah, gosh, that's actually really, really important. And I see it with our young attorneys here at the firm. I think it's, it's all very well to be saying, well, I work till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And, it's kind of almost seen like a badge of honor. And sometimes it is necessary to work those hours. But at the same time, you can't, you have to have balance. That's just my personal view, it's definitely my personal view. Zelinda, if your career were a dessert, what kind of dessert would it be and why?
So now you're talking my language. Talk about desserts and food. I can assist. A chili chocolate fondant. So chili, a little bit of spice, chocolate fondant that it's hard on the outside and soft on the inside, all gushy and gooey on the inside. Nicole knows if I have my moments, I'm all like, wow, shouting and screaming at everybody, and then 5 seconds later, I love you. I'm pretty much the same way with my clients as well. Like I'll go in hard and then I'll understand where they're coming from, and I'll soften up a little bit, but I've always got that little kick when needed. So yeah, that was an easy one to prepare for. It made me very hungry, so I went to go make chocolate afterwards. Yeah.
I need to bear this in mind when I talk to you in future. You just sort of got to spring in your step.
I brighten up when you talk about food and sweet things.
Alicia, if you could sum up your career so far in 3 words, what would they be?
Passion, burnout, resurrection.
Interesting. And when was your like burnout time? When was it during this like exam time or?
So, I'm just a professional student. So exams kind of come I hate them, but they come quite naturally to me these days. But I think burnout, I think the sectional title industry is conducive to burnout, because you're working a full day, you're doing AGM meetings. And I think many of the larger companies, I speak under correction, they take in young people, young PMs, they chew them up and they spit them out. So this industry does, or the sectional title industry does lead to burnout, because you just go. It pulls a lot of client pleasers, or people pleasers. We are there to please. We want to fix things. We want to please people. So I think I burnt out in just 25 years of sectional title. I just burnt out, and I found my passion again.
And can I ask you, while we're on that subject, because there are a lot of managing agents that come onto this platform, what do you think about online meetings, like the virtual AGMs? Is that a helpful thing for especially a woman managing agent?
So I think it's got its positives and its negatives. You lose the personal touch. So I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It made my life easier. I could sit at home and I could get back to my kids. I didn't have to be traveling in the rain and the dark evenings. Could get back to my kids, do the meeting and cut that meeting short. But you lose touch with your clients. They want that personal touch. And it does become quite a drag of having that chit chat afterwards, when all you want to do after your third meeting of the week and at 7 o'clock at night, you want to get home. But I think the personal touch, you just lose it, and you can't gauge your clients as easily when you're sitting behind a screen. You know, body language is important. So it has its place, but I do think personal meetings should not get lost. I think there's definitely, one should strive for as many personal meetings as possible, even though for managing agents, it's not the ideal, because you do get dragged into, oh, do you know this? And do you know that? And can I show you this? And if I can just say, even in the advocacy, I mean, the bars are changing drastically, or the bar has changed drastically since COVID, because you no longer have advocates sitting in their chambers every day, and you can walk down the road as a junior advocate or down the passage, ask somebody, bounce something off your colleague that you're not sure of, or a junior advocate waiting for work to come your way or hungry for work, and a brief comes into the office and somebody says, oh, Lisha's in the office, in her chambers, let's just give that brief to her, she can do it. There just isn't that anymore. People don't do that because advocates are practicing from home now. They have chambers for meetings, but they're predominantly at home. They're doing Teams meetings. They don't have to be sitting in offices or chambers. So it's changed. This online thing has just changed everything. And I'm not exactly a fan of it, to be honest. I mean, my entire pupillage, for 1 year, literally came in every single day, to the point where my mentor said, you know, you don't have to come in every day. I said, I'm not going to learn at home. Just, I want to be where something's happening.
Yeah, very much so. I agree. I think sometimes I need to speak to myself a little bit sternly, because when I see I've got a meeting in my diary and Lola's put my meeting, I look to see, and if it's in person, it's like, oh,
I agree. I had
yeah, and I've got to make coffee, and maybe they're late. And you know, when it's virtual, I'm like quite a happy camper. They all get on and we click and they're there, they pop up, and then I can just whack that button when it's finished. But I agree, we do need to started getting back to older ways. I definitely agree.
I loved virtual meetings, but it's not good for your interpersonal relations.
Yeah, certainly mental health as well. So Nicole, in one sentence, if you were at a dinner party and you had to describe sectional title law to somebody who has no idea what it is, what exactly would you say?
So it's I was in res in varsity, so I would explain it to people. I would explain it in a way and kind of say it's like a university residence, but for adults, and all of those adults are collectively paying for their residence, but also each have their own little parts. That's the simplest way I can explain.
Yeah. It's good. It's taken from your absolute experience.
Yeah, I thought about
good. And now I just went.
No, sorry. Continue. No, you continue. Go for it.
No, you continue. You continue.
Oh, I was gonna say, when I first started, Mike Addison used to tell me that his favorite thing about sectional title that people would say was that it was like a hotel. But I didn't want to use that analogy today because I know a lot of people would get upset by that probably.
Nice. All right, one last whip around because we're nearly running out of time. I'm going to ask you all the same question about something we don't know about you. We want to know something that in your personal life, if it's some sort of hobby that you do, or how you exercise or what your other passions are. Zelinda, can I start with you?
Sure, I'm pretty much an open book. I like to post my life on social media, so there's not much that people don't know about me, but I did mention to somebody over the telephone earlier, and they didn't know this, is that I can't swim. So I'm learning how to swim because I've got a 3-year-old that now officially swims better than me. And when we swim together, she insists on trying to drown her mother, which is not that difficult. So I need to learn to swim to save myself from my 3-year-old.
Okay. So if I see you at the 3-point swimming pool, I'll know what you're trying to do there.
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, that's great. Michelle?
So like Zelinda, I'm also an open book. And as you know, my life goes on social media. If you want to know what I'm doing, just look at my Facebook page. But yeah, so exercise is my go-to. I mean, I'm a bit of an exercise junkie. I love fast cars and I love water skiing, although I'm such an amateur at it, having done it for many years. And that's my life in a nutshell, other than work.
Yeah. Work does take, work is actually getting in the way a little bit of, of my social life. I have to be honest with you. But anyway, Nicole?
I'm actually quite a big introvert. I don't know if people would think that necessarily, but I'm a massive homebody and actually a really big introvert. But my passion is actually sport, like watching sport. I know a lot about sport. My favorite types of sports are football, and I'm obviously watching currently the SA20 cricket tournament that's on every single day now, which is amazing. And I actually live down the road from the Newlands Cricket Stadium. So lucky enough to have gone to watch some of those live games. And then just generally, I love to be outdoors and outside. I live down the road from the Newlands Forest as well. So when me and my boyfriend are both off on weekends, we like to go for a nice walk there and just unwind that way.
Brilliant. Ladies, I must tell you, it's been an absolute delight to speak to you. I've learned more about you just in this 45 minutes. And I think I would encourage that we keep talking and we keep engaging and never lose sight of the fact that we are women in this industry. Although we can compete with each other on certain levels from a work point of view, we are friends and we are a sectional title family. So I appreciate you. Thank you very, very much for joining me today. And take care. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you. Bye.